Welcome, weary travelers of the night, to true scary ghost stories for sleep. You've entered a realm where shadows whisper secrets and the walls hold memories too dark to forget. Tonight, we venture into the heart of haunted houses, places where restless spirits linger and the paranormal defies reason. These tales are woven to chill your bones while guiding you into a deep, eerie slumber. So, dim your lights, pull your blanket close, and surrender to the darkness. If you're brave enough to stay until the end, you might hear something or someone watching from the other side. Let's begin with our first tale, The Whispering Walls. The Whispering Walls. In the small town of Blackwood, Virginia, nestled among rolling hills, stood the Holloway House. Built in 1832 by tobacco merchant Samuel Holloway, the mansion was once a beacon of wealth, with its towering columns and sprawling gardens. But by 1974, it was a crumbling relic whispered about in fear. Locals called it cursed, claiming the walls themselves spoke. Maggie Carter, a 24-year-old history graduate, arrived in Blackwood to work at the local museum. Drawn to the town's past, she saw Holloway House as a chance to uncover forgotten stories. "That place ain't right," warned Mrs. Delaney at the general store. "People go in, but not all come out." Maggie dismissed it as folklore. Armed with a flashlight, notebook, and Polaroid camera, she approached the house on a humid July evening. The mansion loomed in the dusk, its paint peeling, windows like hollow eyes. The front door hung ajar, creaking in the breeze. Inside, the air was thick with mildew and decay. Dust danced in her flashlight's beam as she crossed the foyer, where a grand staircase spiraled upward. A chandelier hung in the parlor, its crystals cracked. The dining table sat untouched, as if awaiting ghostly guests. As Maggie explored, a faint hum broke the silence, like distant voices she couldn't grasp. She blamed the wind, but the sound grew in a library where rotting books lined the walls. The hum became whispers, soft and human. "Hello?" she called, her voice trembling. The whisper stopped. Heart pounding, she climbed the staircase, each step creaking. At the top, a hallway stretched into darkness, lined with closed doors. The whispers returned, clearer, a chorus of murmurs she couldn't decode. In the master bedroom, a clouded full-length mirror stood. Her reflection seemed wrong, her face too pale, her eyes too dark. As she stepped back, the whispers grew frantic, overlapping. "Help us. Free us. He trapped us." Her flashlight flickered, then died. In the darkness, the mirror glowed faintly, revealing a woman in a white dress, gaunt, with hollow eyes. Maggie screamed, stumbling back. The woman's lips moved silently, but the whispers filled Maggie's mind, cold and urgent. She ran, boots pounding, the whispers chasing her down the stairs. Outside, she collapsed in the grass, gasping. The house was silent, as if nothing had happened. Later, she found her dropped Polaroid had snapped a photo. It showed the bedroom and the faint outline of the woman in white. Mrs. Delaney wasn't surprised. "That's Eliza Holloway," she said. "Samuel's wife. He locked her in that house, drove her mad. Some say she's still there with others he wronged." Maggie left Blackwood soon after, but but the whispers haunted her dreams, begging to be freed. The Cursed Portrait. In 1890, the Wentworth family moved into a stately manor in Salem, Massachusetts. The house came with a peculiar item, a portrait of a young woman, her eyes piercing, her smile cold. The seller warned them never to move it, but the Wentworths laughed it off. That winter, strange things began. Clara Wentworth, the youngest daughter, noticed the portrait's eyes seemed to follow her. At night, she heard footsteps in the hall, though no one was there. Her brothers dismissed her, but soon, objects moved on their own. Books fell, doors slammed. The family's dog refused to enter the room with the portrait, growling at the painted face. One night, Clara's father, desperate to end the disturbances, took the portrait down. As he did, a scream echoed through the house. Not human, but something ancient, enraged. The portrait fell unharmed, but Mr. Wentworth collapsed, blood trickling from his ears. He died days later, raving about a woman in his dreams. The family fled, but the portrait remained. Decades later, in 1985, a new owner, James Riley, moved in. He, too, ignored the warnings. The portrait's eyes seemed to glow at night, and whispers filled the house. James found old letters in the attic, written by Clara, claiming the woman in the painting was a witch executed in 1692, her soul bound to the canvas. One night, James tried to burn the portrait. The flames wouldn't touch it, but the house grew freezing, and a figure appeared, a woman with the portrait's face, her hands clawing at him. James survived barely and sold the house. The portrait still hangs there, untouched, waiting for its next guest. In the quiet fields of rural Ohio, the Harper family purchased a fixer-upper home in the spring of 2010. The house, built in 1920, was a steel, sprawling two-story structure with creaking floors and peeling paint, but full of charm. The realtor, a nervous woman named Mrs. Coleman, rushed them to the tour, lingering only briefly in the upstairs nursery. The room was frozen in time, with faded floral wallpaper, a dust-covered crib, and a rocking chair that swayed slightly as if caught in an unseen breeze. The Harpers, thrilled by the price, signed the papers without a second thought, eager to start their new life. Sarah Harper, a mother of two, was drawn to the nursery's vintage charm. She imagined repainting it for her children, Tim, aged 8, and Lily, aged 5. But the first night, as the family settled in, Sarah woke to the sound of laughter, a child's giggle high and clear, coming from upstairs. She checked on Tim and Lily, both fast asleep in their rooms on the first floor. The nursery, when she peered inside, was empty, the rocking chair still. She chalked it up to the wind, but her unease lingered. The next morning, Tim mentioned a strange detail over breakfast. "Mom, I saw a girl in the nursery last night," he said, his eyes wide. "She was playing with a doll, but when I said hi, she disappeared." Sarah laughed nervously, assuming it was a dream, but Lily nodded solemnly. "I heard her singing," she whispered. That day, Sarah noticed the nursery's toys, old, brittle things left by previous owners, arranged in a perfect circle on the floor. She hadn't touched them, and the kids swore they hadn't either. Over the next week, the disturbances grew. The giggling returned nightly. Always between midnight and 2 a.m., Sarah's husband, David, a practical man, suggested it was a house settling. But even he couldn't explain the cold spots that appeared in the nursery, chilling the air despite the summer heat. One evening, Sarah found the rocking chair moving violently, its wooden frame thudding against the floor. She grabbed her phone to record it, but the battery drained instantly, leaving her in darkness. When she returned with a flashlight, the chair was still as if mocking her. Desperate for answers, Sarah visited the local library, digging through records about the house. She found a newspaper clipping from 1953, yellowed and brittle. It described the tragic death of a girl named Lily Prescott, age 6, who lived in the house. Her mother, Margaret, had been found wandering the fields, incoherent, claiming her daughter was still in the nursery, waiting. The article hinted at foul play, but no charges were filed. Margaret was committed to an asylum, and the house sat empty for years. Sarah's heart sank. Her daughter shared the girl's name, and the coincidence felt like a warning. She stopped letting the kids upstairs, but Tim grew obsessed, sneaking into the nursery to find the girl. One night, Sarah caught him there, staring at the crib. "She wants to play," he said, his voice flat. The air grew heavy, and Sarah felt eyes on her, though no one was there. She dragged him downstairs, locking the nursery door. The disturbances escalated. The nursery door, though locked, would creak open at night. Footprints, small, bare, and damp, appeared on the hallway floor, leading to the stairs. Sarah's dreams were plagued by a girl in a white dress, her face obscured, singing a lullaby that felt both comforting and menacing. David, skeptical but shaken, agreed to call a local priest, Father Michael, who specialized in paranormal cases. Father Michael arrived on a rainy afternoon, his face grim. He sensed a presence in the nursery, something tied to grief. He blessed the room, sprinkling holy water, but as he did, the crib rattled, and a child's voice whispered, "Stay with me." The priest paled, urging the Harpers to leave. "This isn't just a spirit," he said. "It's something stronger, anchored here." That night, Sarah woke to lullaby again, louder, echoing through the house. She followed it to the nursery, where the rocking chair spun wildly, and the crib's mobile twirled without wind. In the corner stood a figure, a girl in a white dress, her eyes black voids, her mouth open in a silent scream. Sarah's scream caught her throat as the girl lunged, her cold hands brushing Sarah's face. The air thickened, and the lullaby became a wail. Sarah stumbled back, slamming the door, but the girl's voice followed. "You can't leave me." The Harpers moved out the next day, leaving everything behind. They stayed with relatives, refusing to return. Neighbors reported strange lights in the nursery window, flickering like a candle. Years later, a new family moved in, unaware of the history. They, too, heard the laughter, saw the girl, and fled. The house stands empty now, its nursery untouched, the rocking chair still swaying. Some say Lily Prescott is still there, waiting for someone to play with forever. The basement door. In the fall of 1995, Tom and Laura Bennett moved into a modest home in Portland, Oregon. Eager to start their life together, the house was old, built in the 1930s, with a steep roof and a small, overgrown yard. The realtor, a man with a forced smile, pointed out its quirks: leaky pipes, drafty windows, but rushed past the basement door, padlocked and rusted. Just storage, she said. No need to go down there. Tom, a handyman, figured he'd explore it later. Laura, a nurse, was too busy unpacking to care. The first night, as they lay in bed, they heard it, a faint scratching, like nails dragging across wood, coming from below. Tom checked the basement door, finding the padlock intact. Probably rats, he said, but his confidence wavered. The scratching returned nightly, growing louder, joined by a low hum, like a voice muffled by walls. Laura, exhausted from night shifts, began to dread the house, her sleep plagued by dreams of a dark figure sitting in a chair, watching her. Curiosity got the better of Tom. On their second weekend, he pried off the padlock with a crowbar. The door groaned open, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. The air was damp, heavy with the scent of mold. At the bottom, the basement was bare except for a single wooden chair, facing a blank concrete wall. No boxes, no shelves, just a chair which was scarred with deep scratches. Tom laughed nervously, but the air felt wrong, as if the room was holding its breath. That night, the scratching became pounding, rhythmic, and deliberate. Laura woke to whispers, faint but clear. You opened it. She shook Tom awake, but he heard nothing. The next day, she found scratches on the basement door, fresh, deep, as if made by human nails. Tom, stubborn, insisted it was a house's age, but Laura noticed his hands trembling. At the local diner, an old neighbor, Mr. Grayson, overheard them talking. His face darkened. You opened the basement, didn't you? He said. He told them about the previous owner, a man named Ezekiel Crane, a recluse who lived there in the 1970s. Crane was rumored to perform rituals in the basement, summoning something he called the Watcher. One day, he vanished, leaving the house locked. The chair, Mr. Grayson said, was always there, even after police cleared the place. Laura begged Tom to move, but he refused, determined to fix the house. The disturbances worsened. Shadows moved in the basement's darkness, though no light cast them. The chair would shift positions, sometimes facing the stairs, as if waiting. One night, Laura saw a figure in the kitchen. A man hunched, his eyes glinting like coins. She screamed and he vanished, but the air grew freezing, her breath visible. Tom, desperate to prove it was nothing, set up a camera in the basement. The footage showed static, then a flicker, the chair rocking, a shadow leaning over it. The next morning, they found a camera smashed, its pieces arranged in a circle. Laura packed a bag, ready to leave, but Tom insisted on one last night to face it. That night, a loud bang woke them. Tom grabbed a flashlight and headed to the basement, Laura pleading for him to stay. She waited, heart pounding, as minutes stretched into hours. At dawn, she found him in the basement, sitting in the chair, staring at the wall. His eyes were blank, his FaceTiming video call, and he muttered in a language she didn't recognize. She called 911, but by the time help arrived, Tom was catatonic, unresponsive. Doctors found no cause, but he never spoke again. Laura sold the house and moved away. The new owner sealed the basement door, but locals say the scratching persists louder at night. The chair remains untouched, facing the wall. Some claim Ezekiel's rituals bound something to that room, something that watches, waits, and never leaves. The widow's lantern on a jagged cliff overlooking the Atlantic. The gray house stood alone in a small Maine village, built in 1840. It was a weathered structure with a lantern room at its peak, once used to guide ships. Locals called it the widow's house, named for Abigail Gray, whose husband, Captain Thomas Gray, drowned in a storm in 1901. Legend said Abigail lit the lantern every night, waiting for his return until her death in 1910. Yet long after, the lantern glowed at midnight, casting an eerie light over the sea. In 2020, Anna Reed, a writer seeking solitude, rented the gray house. The realtor warned her about the ghost stories, but Anna, skeptical, dismissed them. The house was drafty, its floors uneven, but the view was breathtaking. That first night, as she wrote by candlelight, she noticed a faint glow from the cliff's edge where the lantern room stood. She climbed the spiral staircase to check, finding the room empty. Its glass walls cracked, the lantern rusted, yet the glow persisted, pulsing like a heartbeat. The next night, footsteps echoed in the attic, slow and deliberate. Anna's candles flickered, though no breeze stirred. She felt a cold touch on her neck, like fingers brushing her skin. Sleep became impossible. Her dreams filled with a woman in a black shawl, standing by the sea, her face hidden. The villagers were unsurprised. "That's Abigail," said Mrs. Harrow, the postmistress. She made a deal with the sea to bring Thomas back. It took her instead. Anna researched the house, finding a journal in the attic, its pages brittle. Abigail wrote her pact. Blood spilled under a full moon, a promise to the old ones beneath the waves. Thomas's body never washed ashore, but Abigail claimed he spoke to her, his voice in the wind. The entries grew frantic, describing shapes in the water, eyes in the dark. The final page read, "They're coming for me." The disturbances intensified. Anna's laptop crashed, displaying images of the sea she hadn't taken. Objects moved, her keys in the sink, her shoes by the cliff. The lantern's glow grew brighter, visible even in fog. One night, Anna woke to water pooling on her floor, though the roof was intact. Footprints led to the lantern room, wet and bare, on a stormy night. Anna climbed to the lantern room, drawn by singing a mournful shanty. The lantern blazed, and a figure stood there, a woman in a dripping shawl, her face skeletal, her eyes like titterpools. "Join us," she whispered, her voice in Anna's mind. The air thickened, the walls shaking. Anna fled, slipping on the wet stairs, barely escaping. She left the next day, but the gray house remains. Fishermen swear the lantern still shines, luring ships to the rocks. Some say Abigail's pact bound her to the sea, her soul eternally lighting the way for a husband who never returned, and for others foolish enough to answer a call. The forgotten tenant. In 2005, Emily Larson, a 27-year-old graphic designer, rented an apartment in Chicago's historic Logan Square. The building, a red brick relic from the 1920s, had high ceilings and warped floors, but the rent was unbeatable. Her unit, 3B, was cozy, but the landlord, Mr. Kowalski, warned her about the locked room next door. Old storage, he said, his eyes darting, ignoring any noises. Emily, busy with freelance deadlines, nodded absently. The first night, she heard sobbing from the locked room, soft and rhythmic, like a child crying. She knocked, but no one answered. The sound stopped, leaving an oppressive silence. Over the next week, the sobbing returned, always at 3 a.m., joined by faint knocks, as if someone tapped the wall. Emily's sleep suffered, her dreams haunted by a woman in a gray dress, her face blurred, reaching for her. She mentioned the noises to a neighbor, Mrs. Ortiz. Cross herself. "That's Margaret," she said. Margaret Dunn, a tenant in the 1970s, lived in the locked room. She grew reclusive, muttering about eyes in the walls, then vanished in 1978. The police found nothing, but her belongings remained untouched. Emily, curious, searched online, finding a grainy article about Margaret's disappearance, mentioning her fear of something in the apartment. The disturbances escalated. Emily's mirrors fogged up, revealing handprints when wiped. Her lights flickered, bulbs burning out daily. One night, she saw a shadow under the locked door, shifting as if pacing. She called Mr. Kowalski, who dismissed it as old pipes, but his voice trembled. Emily, determined, picked the lock with a hairpin, revealing a room frozen in time. A sagging bed, a rotary phone, a dresser with yellow photos. The air was stale, heavy, as if no one had entered in decades. That night, the sobbing became screams, high and desperate. Emily's front door rattled, though no one was outside. She found scratches on her walls, jagged and deep. In her bathroom mirror, a woman's face appeared, not hers, but gaunt with pleading eyes. Emily's heart raced, her breath visible in the sudden cold. She fled to a friend's house, but the noises followed, faint knocks in her dreams. Against her better judgment, Emily returned to collect her things. The locked room's door was ajar, though she'd sealed it. Inside, Margaret's photos were arranged on the bed, showing Emily's face instead of Margaret's. A voice whispered, "You see me now?" Emily grabbed her bag and ran, never looking back. The apartment was re-rented, but new tenants rarely stay. The locked room remains, its door always shut, the sobbing echoing at 3 a.m. Some say Margaret's still there, trapped, seeking someone to share her endless vigil. The clock that stopped under her in 1980, the Miller family inherited a house in rural Kentucky from a distant uncle, George Miller. The house, a two-story farmhouse built in 1890, was cluttered with antiques, including a grandfather clock in the parlor. Its hands were frozen at 11:47, and locals said it hadn't ticked since 1945. The Millers, John, Ellen, and their daughter, Ellie, age 9, saw it as a quaint relic, a centerpiece of their new home. The first night, Ellie complained of whispers in the parlor, like voices arguing. John checked, finding only the clock, its pendulum still. He wound it, hoping to restore its charm. As the key turned, the air grew cold, the windows foggy. The clock ticked once, a deep, resonant sound, then stopped. That night, the whispers returned, louder, joined by footsteps circling the house. Over the next week, the clock became a focal point of unease. Ellie refused to enter the parlor, claiming a man in old clothes stood by the clock, his face blurred. The family's dog growled at the room, hackles raised, objects moved, keys in the sink, books open to blank pages. At night, the clock chimed, though its hands remained frozen at 11:47. The chimes were irregular, sometimes 3, sometimes 13, each one shaking walls. Ellen, the librarian, researched the house's history. She found a 1945 police report about a murder in the parlor. George's brother, Henry, was stabbed at 11:47 p.m. His pocket watch stopped at the exact moment. The killer was never caught, and George, the sole witness, left town soon after. The clock, Ellen learned, was Henry's prized possession, bought in Europe, rumored to be touched by something old. The disturbances grew violent. Ellie woke screaming, claw marks on her arm, though her door was locked. John saw the man Ellie described, standing by the clock, his hands dripping red. The air in the parlor was heavy, like breathing through cloth. Ellen called a local historian, Dr. Weaver, who visited with a grim expression. He believed the clock was a vessel, binding Henry's spirit to the moment of his death. Smash it, he urged, but John hesitated, fearing it would worsen things. One night, the clock's chimes became deafening, shaking the house. The man appeared, his face clear now. Henry, his eyes wild, mouth open in a silent scream. Blood pooled on the floor, though no source was visible. Ellie ran to the parlor, drawn by the sound, and touched the clock. Her scream pierced the air as the room darkened. The man lunging toward her. John smashed the clock with a sledgehammer, its wood splintering, the chimes stopping mid-note. The house fell silent. The man vanished, the cold lifting. The Millers fled, selling the house at a loss. The new owners rebuilt the parlor, but locals say the clock's fragments were buried in the yard, and whispers still echo at 11:47 p.m. Some claim Henry's spirit lingers, tied not to the clock, but to the house itself, forever reliving his final moment. The room at the end. In 2015, Mark Sullivan, a 32-year-old contractor, bought a fixer-upper in rural Texas, a sprawling house built in 1940. The price was suspiciously low, but Mark, eager to flip it, ignored the realtor's unease. The house had a long hallway upstairs, ending in a sealed room, its door nailed shut. Structural issues, the realtor said, avoiding Mark's eyes. He planned to renovate it, seeing dollar signs. The first night, Mark heard giggles from the hallway, high and childlike, though he lived alone. He checked, finding the sealed door intact, the hallway empty. The giggles returned nightly, joined by scratches like nails on wood. Mark's tools went missing, reappearing in the hallway, lined up neatly. His sleep suffered, his dreams filled with boy in overalls, drawing on walls with a stick. Curiosity drove Mark to pry open the sealed door. Inside was a child's bedroom, untouched since the 1980s. Faded superhero posters, a sagging bed, and walls covered in crayon drawings of eyes, hundreds of them staring. The air was thick, the room colder than the rest of the house. Mark laughed it off, but his chest tightened as if the eyes watched him. A neighbor, Mrs. Caldwell, shared the house's history. In 1983, a family lived there, their son Tommy, age 7, claiming he saw watchers in his room. He grew withdrawn, drawing eyes obsessively, then vanished one night. The police found no trace, and the family sealed the room, unable to bear its memories. Mark, skeptical, dismissed it as trauma, but the giggles grew louder, now screams. Echoing at midnight, Mark found a shoebox in the room, containing Tommy's drawings and a diary. The boy wrote of the watchers, figures in the walls, whispering his name. The final entry read, "They're taking me tonight." Mark's lights flickered, the drawings glowing faintly. Shadows moved in the room, though no light cast them. He boarded the door again, but it splintered open by morning. The drawings rearranged, some showing Mark's face. One night, the screams became deafening, the eyes in the drawings bleeding red. A figure appeared, a boy, his face pale, his hands clawing the air. "You saw them," he whispered, his voice in Mark's skull. The room darkened, eyes blinking in the walls. Mark fled, selling the house at a loss. The new owners tried renovating, but the room resisted, its door always open by dawn. Locals say Tommy's still there, drawing his eyes, waiting for someone to join the watchers. The house stands empty now, the giggles echoing down the hall. The bride in the well in rural Georgia. An old estate called Willow Grove sat on acres of tangled land. Its centerpiece, a sealed stone well in the garden, built in 1850. The house was grand but decaying, its history steeped in whispers. In 1990, Lisa Hammond, a 29-year-old botanist, bought it, drawn to its wild gardens. The well, covered with a rusted iron lid, intrigued her, but locals avoided it, crossing themselves when passing. The first night, Lisa heard singing from the garden, a woman's voice, soft and mournful, weaving a hymn. She checked, finding the well's lid intact, the garden empty. The singing returned nightly, always at dusk, joined by the scent of jasmine, though no flowers bloomed. Lisa's dreams were haunted by a woman in a white dress, her hair dripping, her hands reaching from water. At the town's diner, an old man, Mr. Tate, shared the story. In 1870, Clara Beaumont, a bride-to-be, was found dead in the well, her wedding veil tangled in the stones. Her fiancé, Edward, claimed she fell, but rumors said he pushed her, enraged by her refusal to marry. Clara's body was buried, but the well was sealed, her spirit unrestful. "She sings for justice," Mr. Tate said, his voice low. Lisa explored the house, finding Clara's lock in the attic. Its clasp engraved with CB. The singing grew louder, the locket warm in her hand. She noticed water pooling in the house, though no pipes leaked. Footprints, small, wet, and bare, trail from the well to her bedroom. Lisa's mirrors fogged, showing a woman's face, her eyes pleading, her mouth open in a silent cry. Determined to help, Lisa researched Clara's death, finding a hidden letter in the locket. It described Edward's violence, Clara's fear, and her plan to flee. The scene became cries. The wells lit rattling at night. Lisa called a historian, Dr. Ellis, who believed Clara's spirit was bound to the well, seeking her story's truth. He suggested a blessing, but warned some spirits don't want peace. One stormy night, the well's lid shattered, water bubbling up. Lisa approached, drawn by the hymn. A figure rose, a woman in a dripping veil, her face gaunt, her hands cold as they grazed Lisa's arm. "Tell them," she whispered, her voice like waves. The air thickened, the garden darkening. Lisa ran, clutching the locket, and shared Clara's letter with the town, sparking renewed interest in the case. Willow Grove was sold, but the well remains open, its water unnaturally clear. Locals hear Clara's hymn at dusk, see her veil in the mist. Some say she's free now, her story told. Others believe she lingers, drawing wanderers to the well, forever seeking her lost future, the house that remembers. In 2018, Rachel and Gwen, a 34-year-old photographer, moved into a Victorian house in Boulder, Colorado, known for its memory. The house, built in 1885, was said to hold echoes of its past owners, their lives replaying in its walls. Rachel, drawn to its history, ignored the realtor's warnings, eager to capture its beauty on film. The first night, she noticed her mirrors reflecting odd scenes. A woman sewing, a man reading, moments not her own. The images were faint, like old film, vanishing when she blinked. Rachel assumed it was fatigue, but the scenes returned, growing vivid. She saw a family dining, their faces somber, then arguing, their voices silent but tense. Her camera caught nothing, its battery draining in the house. The disturbances deepened. Rachel's photos developed with strangers' faces, people from decades past. At night, she heard laughter, then screams, echoing from the attic. Objects moved, her tripod in the parlor, her shoes by the fireplace. The air grew heavy, as if the house breathed. Rachel's dreams were invaded by the family, their eyes accusing, their hands reaching. She visited the local historical society, finding records of the house's owners. In 1920, the Carver family lived there, their lives unraveling after a fire killed their son, Samuel. The mother, Elizabeth, grew mad, claiming the house kept them. Other tenants reported visions, some institutionalized, their journals describing the same scenes Rachel saw. One wrote, "The house doesn't let go." Rachel set up motion sensors, hoping to document the phenomena. They triggered constantly, showing shadows in empty rooms. Her mirrors now reflected her, but older, her face haggard, screaming. A voice whispered, "You're ours now," its tone both gentle and menacing. Rachel's health faltered, her skin paling, her energy sapped. Desperate, she contacted a medium, Madame Clara, who sends a loop in the house, the Carvers' grief binding their memories. Leave, Clara urged, or you'll join them. That night, the mirrors blazed, showing the fire, flames licking the walls, Samuel's silhouette burning. Rachel felt heat, though no fire burned. The family appeared, their faces clear, their hands pulling her toward the mirror. Rachel fled, abandoning her equipment. She moved to Denver, but the visions lingered fainter in her apartment's reflections. The house was sold, but new owners rarely stay, reporting mirrors that show lives not theirs. Locals say the carver's grief fuels the house, trapping all who enter in its endless memory. The mirrors remain, reflecting a past that refuses to fade. The shadow in the cellar. In the quiet town of Hanover, Pennsylvania, a modest colonial house stood on Maple Street, its brick facade hiding a dark secret. Built in 1790, the house had served many purposes. A family home, a boarding house, even a makeshift hospital during the Civil War. By 2008, it was owned by Clara Evans, a 40-year-old divorcee looking for a fresh start. The realtor had glossed over the house's history, mentioning only its charm and low price. But Clara noticed the cellar door, bolted shut with a heavy iron lock, and the realtor's quick dismissal. Just an old storage space. No need to bother. The first night, as Clara unpacked, she heard a faint thud from below, like something heavy falling. She checked the cellar door, finding it secure, but the sound persisted, joined by a low moan, like wind trapped in a tunnel. Clara, practical and unafraid, assumed it was a house's age. Yet, her sleep was disturbed by dreams of a man in tattered clothes, his face shadowed, standing in a dark room, his hands dripping with something thick and black. Over the next week, the noises grew. The thuds became knocks, deliberate and rhythmic, as if someone or something wanted out. Clara's coffee mugs would slide off the kitchen counter, shattering on the floor. Her dog, Max, refused to go near the cellar door, growling at it, his fur bristling. One night, Clara woke to Max barking furiously, his eyes fixed on the door, which vibrated slightly as if pushed from the other side. Curiosity overcame fear. Clara hired a locksmith to open the cellar. The lock was ancient, rusted, but it gave way, revealing a stone staircase descending into darkness. The air was damp, smelling of earth and decay. At the bottom, the cellar was vast, its walls lined with cracked stone. In the center stood a rusted iron cage, large enough for a person. Its bars scratched as if clawed from within. Clara's flashlight flickered, casting shadows that seemed to move, curling like smoke. That night, the knocks became bangs, shaking the house. Clara's lights dimmed, and the air grew cold, her breath visible. She heard whispers, low and guttural, from the cellar. "You let me out." Terrified, she called a local historian, Mrs. Abigail Reed, who knew the town's secrets. Abigail's face paled when Clara described the cage. That house was a prison during the war, she said. A soldier, Jacob Klein, was locked in that cellar, accused of desertion. They say he went mad, clawing the bars, cursing his captors. He died there, but some believe he never left. Clara tried to seal the cellar, but the door wouldn't stay shut. Shadows spilled from the staircase, pooling in the kitchen. One night, she saw him, the man from her dreams, his face gaunt, his eyes black voids, standing at the cellar's threshold. His hands dripped black ooze, staining the floor. Clara's scream echoed as the figure lunged, its touch like ice. She fled to a motel, but the shadows followed, flickering in her mirrors. Desperate, Clara hired a medium, Madame Elise, who sensed rage in the cellar, a spirit bound by betrayal. Elise performed a cleansing, burning sage, but the cage rattled and a voice roared, "Mine!" Elise urged Clara to leave, warning that Jacob's spirit claimed the house. Clara sold it at a loss, moving across state lines. The new owners reported noises, shadows, and a cage that wouldn't stay locked. Locals avoid Maple Street at night, claiming a figure watches from the cellar, waiting for someone to let him out again. The mirror in the attic. In 1998, the Thompson family moved into a Victorian house in Savannah, Georgia, known for its ornate woodwork and sprawling attic. The house, built in 1875, had been empty for years, its price slashed due to superstitions. Karen Thompson, a single mother, and her teenage son, Ethan, saw it as a bargain. The realtor mentioned an old mirror in the attic, covered with sheet, but warned against moving it. "It's just dusty," she said, her smile tight. The first night, Ethan heard footsteps in the attic, slow and deliberate, like someone pacing. He checked, finding only the mirror, its sheet partially slipped, revealing a gilded frame and clouded glass. His reflection seemed distorted, his eyes too large, his mouth twisted. He covered again, but the footsteps returned, joined by a faint hum, like a woman singing. Karen dismissed it as the house's creaks. But Ethan noticed her unease, her glances at the attic door. Over the next week, the disturbances grew. The mirror sheet fell off nightly, though no one touched it. Ethan's photos, taken for a school project, showed a woman in the background, her face pale, her dress old-fashioned. Karen's jewelry vanished, reappearing in the attic, arranged in patterns around the mirror. The air in the house grew heavy, the temperature dropping near the attic stairs. Ethan, curious, researched the house at the library. He found an 1880s article about Eliza Monroe, a young woman who lived there. Eliza was betrothed to a wealthy merchant, but disappeared before her wedding. Rumors claimed she was locked in the attic, her beauty preserved in a mirror said to be enchanted. The merchant died mysteriously, and the house was abandoned. Ethan's heart raced. The woman in his photos matched Eliza's description. Karen, worried, called a priest, Father Daniel, who sensed a presence tied to the mirror. He blessed the house, but as he approached the attic, the mirror glowed, and a scream echoed, not human but piercing. Father Daniel stumbled, clutching his chest, and urged Karen to destroy the mirror. Ethan, against his mother's wishes, climbed to the attic alone, determined to end it. The mirror blazed, showing not his reflection but Eliza, her eyes pleading, her hands pressed against the glass. The air thickened, the room spinning. "Free me," she whispered, her voice in his mind. Ethan raised a hammer, but the mirror shook, and hands reached through, cold and bony, pulling at him. He swung, shattering the glass, and the room went dark. When Karen found him, he was unconscious, the mirror's frame empty, its shards scattered. The Thompsons moved out, but the house wasn't empty. New owners reported footsteps, a woman's hum, and a mirror that reappeared in the attic, whole again. Locals say Eliza's soul is trapped, her beauty a curse, drawing others to share her prison. The attic remains locked, but the singing never stops. The room without windows, In 2012, James Carter, a 35-year-old architect, bought a fixer-upper in Boise, Idaho, a 1920s bungalow with a strange feature: a room in the center of the house, no windows, no vents, sealed by a heavy oak door. The realtor called it a panic room, but James noticed her hesitation, her quick exit after the sale. He planned to convert it into an office, drawn to an oddity. The first night, James heard murmurs from the room, like voices arguing in a language he didn't know. The door, though locked, rattled slightly as if pushed. He checked, finding the room empty, its walls bare plaster, the air stale. Yet, the murmurs persisted, growing clearer at night, joined by a faint scratching, like nails on wood. James's sleep was plagued by dreams of crowd in the room, their faces shadowed, their hands reaching for him. Over the next week, the house changed. His blueprints went missing, reappearing in the room, marked with red ink and symbols he didn't recognize. The room's walls felt warm, pulsing faintly under his touch. James's cat, Luna, hissed at the door, refusing to enter. One night, he woke to the door ajar, though he'd locked it. Inside, the walls were scratched, deep gouges forming words. "We see you." James visited the county records office, uncovering the house's past. In 1947, it belonged to a cult led by a man named Amos Reed, who used the room for rituals to contact the others. The cult vanished after a police raid, the room sealed, its members never found. James's neighbor, an old woman named Mrs. Lyle, confirmed the story, whispering, "That room's a door. You opened it." The disturbances escalated. The murmurs became voices, chanting his name. Shadows moved in the room, though no light cast them. James's mirror showed glimpses of figures behind him, their eyes glowing. He tried to seal the door with bolts, but it burst open at night, the room's air freezing, his breath visible. One night, he saw them, a crowd of figures, their faces pale, their mouths open in silent screams, crowding the room. James called a paranormal investigator, Dr. Helen Morse, who sensed a rift in the room, a gateway opened by Amos's rituals. She urged him to burn the house, but James refused, hoping to salvage it. That night, the chanting grew deafening, the walls bleeding red, the figures lunged, their hands cold, pulling him toward the room center. James fled, barely escaping as the door slammed shut. He sold the house, warning the new owners, but they laughed it off. They lasted a month before leaving, reporting voices, shadows, and a room that wouldn't stay sealed. The bungalow stands empty, its door locked, but locals hear murmurs at night, and some claim the room's walls pulse, waiting for the next to open the door. The pianist echo. In 2003, Sophie Laurent, a 28-year-old music teacher, moved into a historic home in New Orleans, Louisiana, known for its grand ballroom and antique piano. Built in 1860, the house had been a salon for artists, its walls steeped in music and tragedy. The piano, a black grand with ivory keys, was said to play itself at night, but Sophie, enchanted by its sound, saw it as a treasure. The realtor mentioned it as sad history, but avoided details, urging her to enjoy the house's charm. The first night, Sophie heard faint notes from the ballroom, a melancholy waltz, though the piano was silent. She checked, finding the keys still, the room empty. The music returned nightly, always at 2 a.m., joined by a woman's sigh. soft but piercing. Sophie's dreams were filled with pianists in a red gown, her fingers bleeding as she played, her face hidden. Over the next week, the house grew restless. The piano's lid slammed shut, though no one touched it. Sophie's sheet music was rearranged, pages torn to highlight the same waltz. Her students complained of cold spots in the ballroom, some refusing lessons. One night, Sophie woke to the waltz blaring, the piano's keys moving as if played by invisible hands. She approached, and the music stopped, but the air grew heavy, a voice whispering, "Play with me." Sophie researched the house at the city archives, finding an 1880 story about Marie Dubois, a celebrated pianist who lived there. Marie's lover, a composer, died in a duel, and she played his waltz obsessively, her grief consuming her. She was found dead at the piano, her fingers worn to the bone, the keys stained red. The house was abandoned, but the waltz echoed, heard by every owner since. Sophie tried to ignore it, but the disturbances worsened. Her mirrors reflected Marie, her gown dripping, her eyes hollow. The piano played even when unplugged, its notes shaking the walls. Sophie's hands bled during lessons, though she hadn't cut them. She called a local voodoo priestess, Mama Celeste, who sensed a soul bound to music. Celeste burned herbs, chanting, but the piano roared, and a figure appeared, Marie, her hands clawing the air, her voice a wail. Sophie stopped playing, but the waltz followed, echoing in her mind. One night, the piano glowed, and Marie stood beside it, her face clear, her hands guiding Sophie's to the keys. The room spun, the waltz deafening. Sophie played, her fingers bleeding, until she collapsed. She woke at dawn, the piano silent, but her hands scarred. Sophie fled, leaving the piano behind. The house was sold, but the waltz persists, heard at 2 a.m. New owners report a woman in red, her sigh lingering. Some say Marie's grief fuels the music, seeking a partner to play her endless song. The piano remains, its keys waiting. The Garden of Ashes. In the autumn of 2010, Michael and Grace Turner, a couple in their late 30s, purchased a secluded estate in rural Vermont, known as Willow Hollow. The manor, built in 1845, stood at the edge of a dense forest, its white clapboard exterior gleaming despite its age. The garden, however, was a stark contrast, a sprawling, overgrown tangle of blackened roses, twisted thorns, and ashen soil that seemed to absorb light. The realtor, a nervous man named Mr. Hargrove, called the garden unusual due to a fire in 1893 that scorched it but spared the house. Just needs tending, he said, avoiding the Turners' questions about its history. Michael, a lawyer with a practical streak, saw it as a challenge, while Grace, an artist, was drawn to its eerie beauty, envisioning it as inspiration for her paintings. The first night, as the couple settled into their new home, Grace woke to whispers drifting from the garden, like voices chanting beneath the earth. She slipped outside, her flashlight cutting through the fog, but found only the blackened roses, their petals glistening as if wet. The air was heavy, the scent of ash thick, and she felt eyes on her, though the garden was empty, back in bed. Her dreams were haunted by a woman in a black dress, her hands charred, scattering ashes that burned her skin. She woke gasping, her fingers stinging, though no marks were visible. Michael dismissed it as stress, but he, too, noticed oddities. The garden soil was warm, even in the October chill, and their dog, Rusty, refused to enter it, whimpering at the rusted iron gate. The next morning, Grace found footprints in the ash, small, bare, and deep, circling the house. They vanished by noon, but new ones appeared each dawn, closer to the door. The roses, dead by day, bloomed at night, their black petals unfurling under the moon, only to wilt at sunrise. Grace's sketches of the garden began to change, showing a woman she hadn't drawn, her face burned, her eyes glowing like embers. Over the next week, the whispers grew louder, chanting "Burn with us" in a chorus that echoed in Grace's skull. Michael's tools, shovels, shears, rusted overnight, their handles splintered. The couple's sleep suffered, their dreams sinking. The woman in black, her hands aflame, leading them to the garden center, where a scorched oak stood, its branches clawing the sky. Rusty grew agitated, scratching at the door, his barks turning to howls. One night, Grace woke him clawing the garden gate, his paws bleeding, as if desperate to dig beneath it. Grace visited the local library, digging through dusty records. She found an 1893 article about the Hawthorne family, who owned Willow Hollow. The mother, Eleanor Hawthorne, was accused of witchcraft. Her garden a site of forbidden rituals. Locals, fearing her power, set the garden ablaze, trapping Eleanor inside. The fire spared the house, but the garden was reduced to ash, and Eleanor's body was never found. The article hinted at a curse. The roses born her blood would bloom until her vengeance was complete. Grace's heart raced. The woman in her dreams matched Eleanor's description, her dress singed, her hands eternally burning. The disturbances intensified. The garden gate, though locked, swung open at midnight, creaking in the wind. Grace's paintings bled red, the canvas warping under her brush. Michael's hands blistered when he tried to prune the roses, the thorns cutting deeper than they should. One evening, they found Rusty in the garden, lying still, his fur dusted with ash, though he hadn't been let out. The vet found no cause of death, but Grace noticed the roses blooming brighter that night, their scent sickly sweet. Desperate, Michael contacted a local pastor, Reverend Thomas, who arrived with a worn Bible and a grim expression. He sensed vengeance in the garden, a spirit tied to rage. As he prayed, scattering holy water, the roses bled red, their petals falling like embers. The ground shook, and a wail pierced the air, not human, but ancient, furious. Reverend Thomas stumbled, his cross snapping, and urged the turners to flee. "She's not at rest," he said. "The garden is her." That night, the whispers became screams, the garden glowing with an unnatural light. Grace and Michael woke to smoke, though no fire burned. Outside, the roses blazed, their flames licking the sky, yet the house remained untouched. Eleanor appeared, her dress smoldering, her hands scattering ash that burned their skin. "Join us," she chanted, her voice a chorus of the damned. Grace felt a pull, her feet moving toward the oak, its branches reaching. Michael grabbed her, dragging her back as the flames roared, Eleanor's figure lunging, her eyes like furnaces. They fled to a motel, their clothes reeking of ash. The next day, they returned to find the garden silent, the roses withered, the oak blackened. They sold Willow Hollow at a loss, warning the new owners, who laughed it off. Within months, the owners left, reporting whispers, footprints, and roses that bloomed in winter. Locals avoid the estate, claiming Eleanor's spirit guards the garden, her ashes fueling the roses, her curse burning all who dare to claim her land. The garden remains, its soil warm, its thorns sharp, waiting for the next to feed its fire. The door that bleeds. In the summer of 2001, Emily and David Pierce, a young couple, purchased a quaint cottage in Asheville, North Carolina, nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains. The house, built in 1905, was a steel, its wraparound porch and stained glass windows charming despite its age. The realtor, a woman with a nervous laugh, pointed out a door in the hallway, painted red and sealed with a rusted bolt. "Old pantry," she said, urging them to leave it be. Emily, a baker, and David, a carpenter, saw it as a minor quirk, eager to make the house their own. The first night, as they unpacked, Emily heard a drip from the hallway, like a faucet left running. She checked, finding the red door dry, but the sound persisted, joined by a faint hum, like a heartbeat. David, practical, blamed the pipes, but Emily's dreams were plagued by a figure behind the door, its hands pressed against the wood, leaving red stains. She woke sweating, her fingers sticky, though clean. Over the next week, the house grew restless. The drip became a trickle, red liquid pooling under the door, though it vanished when touched. The bolt rattled at night, as if loosened by unseen hands. Their cat, Muffin, hissed at the door, her claws scratching the floor. Emily's bread refused to rise, the dough souring, while David's tools dulled, their edges stained red. One night, they woke to the door ajar, a cold draft carrying the scent of iron. Inside was a small room, its walls bare, the floor stained dark, as if soaked in blood. Emily researched the house at the town hall, finding a 1920s record of its first owner, Dr. Samuel Vance, a surgeon who worked from home. Vance was rumored to perform experiments in a hidden room, his patients vanishing. In 1927, he was found dead behind a red door, his throat cut, the room awash in blood. The house was sealed, but locals claimed the door bled, a mark of Vance's crimes. Emily's stomach churned. The figure in her dreams wore a surgeon's coat, its hands gloved in red. The disturbances escalated. The red liquid seeped into the hallway, staining the walls, though it evaporated by morning. Emily's mirror showed glimpses of Vance, his scalpel gleaming, his eyes cold. The door's bolt snapped, and it swung open nightly, revealing the room's walls, now scratched with names, hundreds carved deep. David, shaken, boarded the door, but the board splintered, red ooze leaking through. Emily called a local psychic, Madame Rosa, who sensed suffering behind the door, spirits of Vance's victims trapped in his altar. Rosa burned candles, chanting, but the room shook and a voice roared, "Mine!" Vance appeared, his coat dripping, his hands clawing at Emily. Rosa collapsed, urging them to flee. That night, the door glowed and the room filled with figures, pale, eyeless, their mouths open in silent screams. The Pierces fled, abandoning their belongings. They sold the cottage, warning the new owners, who lasted a week before leaving. The red door remains, its bolt replaced, but locals hear dripping at night, see red stains that vanish. Some say Vance's spirit guards a room, his victims bound to his walls, their blood fueling the door's endless weep. The cottage stands, its hallway cold, the door waiting for the next to open it, the clockmaker's curse. In 1996, Rachel Cohen, a 30-year-old antique dealer, bought a Gothic manor in Concord, Massachusetts, known for its collection of clocks. Built in 1820 by a clockmaker, Elias Thorne, the house was a labyrinth of ticking mechanisms. From pocket watches to towering grandfather clocks, the realtor, a man with a forced smile, called it a time capsule, but warned against touching the clocks, especially a black cuckoo clock in the study, its hands frozen at 3:13. Rachel, enchanted by the craftsmanship, ignored him, eager to restore the collection. The first night, Rachel heard a chime from the study, though the cuckoo clock was still. The sound was off, too deep, too slow, like a funeral bell. She checked, finding the clock's hands moving backward, then stopping. Her dreams were haunted by a man in a frock coat, his fingers ticking like gears, his eyes replaced by clock faces. She woke to Manor's clocks chiming in unison, all at 3:13, though none were wound. Over the next week, the house grew erratic. The clocks ticked out of sync, some speeding, others slowing. Rachel's watches stopped, their batteries dead. Her mirrors reflected her older, her hair graying, though she was unchanged. The cuckoo clock's bird emerged at random, its cry a human scream. One night, Rachel found her tools, tweezers, screwdrivers, arranged in a spiral around the clock, their tips bent. Rachel visited the Historical Society, uncovering Thorne's story. A recluse, he was obsessed with capturing time, believing his clocks could trap souls. In 1835, he vanished, leaving the cuckoo clock unfinished, its mechanism stained with blood. Locals claimed he cursed the house, his spirit bound to clocks, stopping time for all who lived there. Rachel's heart sank. The man in her dreams was Thorne, his fingers clicking like pendulums. The disturbances worsened. The clocks chimed constantly, their hands spinning wildly. Rachel's skin aged, wrinkles forming overnight, though she was healthy. The study's air grew heavy, the cuckoo clock glowing. She heard whispers, "Stay forever," in Thorne's voice. Rachel tried to smash the clock, but it wouldn't break. Its bird lunging at her, its beak sharp. She called a clockmaker, Mr. Harrow, who sensed malice in the mechanism. He dismantled the cuckoo clock, but its gears reassembled, the room shaking. Thorne appeared, his eyes ticking, his hands pulling Rachel toward the clock. "Join me," he whispered, his voice a metronome. Rachel fled, the clock screaming. She sold the manor, warning the new owners, who lasted a month before leaving. The house stands, its clocks ticking at 3:13. Locals hear chimes at night, see a man in the windows, his fingers moving like gears. Some say Thorne's curse traps time, aging all who stay. The cuckoo clock remains, its bird watching, its hands frozen, waiting for the next to wind it. The widow's veil. In the winter 2007, Laura Bennett, a 42-year-old widow, moved into a colonial house in Salem, Virginia, seeking solitude after her husband's sudden death in a car accident. The house, built in 1780, was a stately structure with high ceilings, oak floors, and a widow's walk. A small platform on the roof overlooking the misty valley below. The realtor, a woman named Mrs. Carver with darting eyes and a forced smile, described it as romantic, perfect for a fresh start. She mentioned the widow's walk briefly, calling it unstable and urging Laura not to climb up, but Laura was drawn to its view, imagining quiet evenings watching the stars. She signed the papers, unaware of the house's shadowed past. The first night, as Laura unpacked her late husband's books, she heard a faint rustling from above, like a silk dress dragging across wood. She assumed it was the wind, but the sound was rhythmic, deliberate, coming from the widow's walk. She climbed the narrow attic stairs to the platform, finding it empty, its weathered railing creaking in the breeze. The valley stretched below, shrouded in fog, but the air felt heavy, as if someone stood just out of sight, back in bed. Laura's dreams were haunted by a figure in a black veil, clutching a silver locket, standing on the walk. The figure turned, her face hidden, but her sob echoed in Laura's chest, a grief too deep to name. She woke to the scent of lavender, sharp and sweet, though her house held no flowers. Over the next week, the disturbances grew. The rustling became footsteps, pacing the widow's walk at midnight, slow and mournful. Laura's mirrors fogged without steam, revealing glimpses of a veiled woman behind her, her locket glinting in the dim light. Objects moved. Laura's scarf was found tied in intricate knots on the attic stairs, her shoes arranged in a circle on the platform. The air near the widow's walk was cold, her breath visible even in the heated house. One evening, she discovered a silver locket in the attic, tucked inside a dusty trunk. Its clasp was engraved with MR, and inside was a faded daguerreotype of a woman in a black veil, her eyes piercing, her expression frozen in sorrow. The locket was warm, pulsing faintly as if alive. Laura's unease deepened, but curiosity drove her to the county library. She found an 1802 newspaper clipping about Margaret Reed, a widow who lived in the house. Margaret's husband, a merchant named William, died at sea in a storm, his ship lost off the Carolina coast. Devastated, Margaret took to the widow's walk each night, clutching a locket with his portrait, waiting for his return. In 1803, during a fierce blizzard, she vanished, her veil found tangled in the railing, torn and ice-crusted. The townsfolk believed she threw herself into the valley, but her body was never found. Locals whispered that Margaret's spirit lingered, her sobs carried on the wind, her locket a tether to her endless grief. Laura's hands trembled as she held the locket. The woman in her dreams was Margaret, her veil dripping with frost. The house grew restless. The widow's walk's trapdoor, though latched, slammed shut at random, shaking the attic. Laura's clothes were found on the platform, arranged like a mourning dress, their hems dusted with ash. The sob became wails, high and piercing, rattling the windows. Laura's sleep was plagued by visions of Margaret, her veil lifting to reveal a face not human but skeletal, her eyes hollow, her mouth open in a silent scream. The locket burned against Laura's skin when she touched it, leaving faint marks that faded by morning. Desperate for answers, Laura contacted Dr. Helen Ellis, a local historian who studied Salem's haunted sites. Dr. Ellis visited, her face grim as she examined the locket. "Margaret's grief is a chain," she said. "She's bound to the widow's walk, waiting for a husband who will never come. The locket holds her pain." Ellis suggested a ritual to release Margaret's spirit, burning lavender and reading a prayer for rest. As they climbed to the widow's walk, the locket glowed and a wind howled though the night was still. The platform shook and a voice screamed, "He's not coming." The candle snuffed out and Dr. Ellis stumbled, clutching her chest, urging Laura to destroy the locket. That night, the widow's walk blazed in unnatural light, visible from a valley. Laura woke to the wails, louder, shaking the house. She climbed to the platform, drawn by the sobs, and saw Margaret, her veil dripping with ice, her hands clutching the locket, her skeletal face clear under the moon. "Stay with me," Margaret whispered, her voice a chorus in Laura's mind. The railing splintered, the platform tilting, as if pulling Laura into the void. She threw the locket into the valley, and Margaret lunged, her hands cold as they grazed Laura's face. The locket shattered on the rocks below, and the wails stopped, the platform stilling. Laura fled the next day, selling the house at a loss. She warned the new owners, but they dismissed her, enchanted by the view. Within weeks, they reported footsteps, sobs, and a veil flapping in the wind. The locket was gone, but Margaret's presence remained, her grief etched into the widow's walk. Locals avoid the house at night, claiming a figure in black stands on the platform, her wails echoing through the valley. Some say Margaret's spirit seeks another to share a vigil, her veil a trap for those who linger too long. The widow's walk stands, its with creaking, its view haunted by a widow who waits forever, the staircase that sings. In the spring of 1999, Daniel and Sarah Morgan, a couple in their early 30s, bought a Georgian manor in Charleston, South Carolina, known for its grand staircase, spiraling oak structure with intricate carvings, the centerpiece of the foyer. Built in 1795, the house was a historic gem, its price slashed due to minor repairs. The realtor, a man with a clipped tone, called the staircase a masterpiece, but avoided lingering near it, urging the Morgans to focus on the gardens. Daniel, a history professor, and Sarah, a violinist, were enchanted, seeing the house as a canvas for their dreams. The first night, as they unpacked, Sarah heard a faint hum from the staircase, like a lullaby sung by a distant voice. She assumed it was the wind, but the sound was melodic, deliberate, rising and falling like a mother's song. She climbed the stairs, finding nothing but shadows, the carvings, cherubs, and vines, seeming to shift in the moonlight. Her dreams were haunted by a woman in a gray gown, rocking a cradle at the top of the stairs, her face hidden, her lullaby both soothing and menacing. Sarah woke to the hum, louder, echoing in her ears, though the house was silent. Over the next week, the staircase grew restless. The hum became singing, clear and mournful, heard only at dusk. The stairs creaked under invisible steps, though no one walked them. Sarah's violin string snapped, tuned to the lullaby's key. Daniel's books fell from shelves, open to pages about loss. The air on the staircase was cold, their breath visible, and the carving seemed to change. Cherub's eyes now hollow, vines curling like fingers. One night, Sarah found a child shoe at the top of the stairs, old and cracked, though they had no children. Daniel, curious, researched the house at the university library. He found an 1810 record of the Langley family, who lived there. The mother, Abigail Langley, lost her infant son, Thomas, to fever. Grief-stricken, she sang to an empty cradle on the staircase, believing he lingered. In 1812, she fell from the top step, her neck broken, the lullaby heard moments before. Locals claimed Abigail's spirit haunted the stairs. Her song a call to her lost child. Daniel's heart sank. The woman in Sarah's dreams was Abigail, her gown gray, her cradle empty. The disturbances escalated. The singing grew louder, shaking the chandelier. Footprints, small, bare, and damp, appeared on the stairs, vanishing by dawn. Sarah's dreams turned violent, Abigail's lullaby becoming a wail, her hands pulling Sarah toward the cradle. The staircase's banister rattled, as if struck by unseen hands. Daniel noticed Sarah humming the lullaby absent-mindedly, her eyes distant, her fingers trembling. They called a local medium, Madame Beatrice, who sensed a mother's sorrow in the staircase. She lit candles, chanting for Abigail's rest, but the carvings glowed, and a child's cry echoed, not human but piercing. The stairs shook, and Abigail appeared, her gown dripping, her face gone, her hands clutching a spectral cradle. "My boy," she wailed, her voice in their minds. Madame Beatrice collapsed, urging them to leave. That night, the staircase sang, the lullaby deafening, the cradle rocking at the top. Sarah, drawn by the song, climbed the stairs, her eyes glazed. Daniel followed, finding her at the cradle, humming, her hands bleeding as if rocking it. Abigail stood behind, her hands on Sarah's shoulders. Her wail of command, Daniel pulled Sarah back, the stairs buckling, Abigail's figure lunging. They fled, the lullaby chasing them. They sold the manor, warning the new owners, who heard the song within days. The house stands, its staircase gleaming but restless. Locals hear a lullaby at dusk. See a woman at the top, her cradle empty. Some say Abigail's grief binds her to stairs. Her song a trap for those who listen too long. The carvings watch, their eyes alive. The staircase waiting for the next to climb. The room of forgotten names. In 2014, Emma Riley, a 29-year-old librarian, moved into a Queen Anne-style house in Portland, Maine, known for its turret and stained glass windows. The house, built in 1888, was a bargain, its previous owners leaving abruptly. The realtor, a woman with a tight smile, pointed out a small room in the turret, its door locked with brass key, calling it extra storage. Emma, drawn to the house's charm, planned to use the room as a study, ignoring the realtor's haste to leave. The first night, Emma heard whispers from the turret, like voices reading names in a roll call. She checked the locked door, finding it cold, the key missing. The whispers were faint but persistent, rising at 3 a.m., joined by the sound of paper rustling, as if pages turned. Her dreams were haunted by a figure in a hooded cloak, standing in a room filled with books, their pages blank but bleeding ink. She woke to the smell of old paper, her hands smudged with ink, though her desk was clean. Over the next week, the house grew eerie. The whispers became names, unfamiliar but spoken with urgency. Eleanor, Thomas, Abigail. The turret door rattled, though locked, and scratches appeared on its wood, forming letters. Emma's books rearranged themselves, their titles erased, replaced with names from whispers. The air in the house was heavy, the turret room cold in the rest, its windows fogged with handprints. One night, Emma found a brass key under her pillow, its metal warm, as if held. Emma researched the house at the city archives, finding an 1890s record of its owner, Nathaniel Crow, a recluse who collected names of the dead, believing they held power. He locked himself in the turret, writing names in a ledger, claiming they spoke to him. In 1895, he vanished. The room sealed, his ledger gone. Locals said the turret was a grave for names, Crow's obsession binding spirits to its walls. Emma's stomach churned. The figure in her dreams was Crow, his cloak dripping ink, his hands writing her name. The disturbances worsened. The whispers grew louder, chanting Emma's name among others. The turret door opened at night, revealing a room lined with shelves, empty but scratched with names, thousands carved into the wood. Emma's mirror showed glimpses of Crow, his hood low, his pen dripping, her skin itched, names appearing faintly on her arms, fading by dawn. She tried to lock the door, but the key burned, and the rooms there thickened. Her breath labored. Emma called a local occultist, Mr. Gideon, who sensed a ledger of souls in the turret, Crow's obsession trapping spirits. He burned sage, reading a banishment, but the shelves shook and a voice roared, "They're mine!" Crow appeared, his cloak billowing, his hands clawing at Emma. The names glowed, the room darkening. Gideon collapsed, urging her to burn the house. That night, the turret blazed and figures emerged, pale, eyeless, chanting Emma's name. Emma fled, leaving everything. She sold the house, warning the new owners, who reported whispers, scratches, and a room that wouldn't stay locked. The turret stands, its shells bare but alive with names. Locals hear voices at 3 a.m., see a cloaked figure in the windows, his pen moving. Some say Crow's ledger binds the dead, adding names of the living. The room waits, its door open, its whispers calling for the next to join. And so, our journey through the haunted houses of the night comes to an end for now. If these tales have chilled your soul or lulled you towards sleep, we've done our job. Join us tomorrow for more true scary ghost stories for sleep. We'll explore the shadows of urban legends that refuse to die. Like, subscribe, and share if you dare to spread the darkness. Until next time, sleep well if you can.